Okay, quick video here on the way that I go about sharpening a knife and my little setup that I've got. A couple of people asking still about the sharpener, and what I do that is the clamp or secure everything, all that sort of stuff. Hopefully I can just answer a few questions about that and the gauge here as well. Right, let's see. I'm going to try and do this big one here today. Now this was drastically damaged, had quite a large dip in the blade as well, but I just took that back with a grinder a little bit. It's not really necessary for this knife because it is more of a carver, I guess, but doesn't ever really need to make the full contact. But this is what the customer wanted anyway. They have also told me that they want a certain angle on this. The angle is going to be 15 degrees. So first thing we're going to do with it being a large knife is move these clamps outwards. So twist these knobs at the back. I'm going to knit them right to the ends, tighten them back up again. Now these clamps, people are wanting to know about the clamps as well. How are they adjustable? You have the top two screws here, and then the two screws closer towards the edge of the clamps as well. Now what that is for, these screws in the middle will separate the middle of the clamps apart, pulling the tips of the clamp in together whilst leaving the back end of the clamps open, as a lot of knives are actually shaped and beveled this way. So to be able to get the knife in there properly and not having any deviation like this, you need to make sure that the clamps are properly adjusted for the shape of the knife. Now, this knife is not too bad, it's not in horrible shape, but it's quite a slim blade, so you have to be careful that we're not hitting these screws when we're positioning the clamps. Another tip here as well, I've got just these little button magnets, because this stand here is solid steel, as I've said before, so it's very good for just chucking your tension wrenches, I can't put my mind in locks, Allen keys, they'll just stick on, you won't lose them. Right, so unfortunately these two different screws on each of these clamps are different size wrenches. I'm not too sure why that is, why they didn't just keep the same wrench for ease, make your life a lot easier, but that's the way it is. Now, when you put your knife in the clamp, you also want the actual edge that you're sharpening to be as straight as possible to this back edge. So, by doing that, a lot of the times you can just do it by eye. I've got a tape, we'll measure it, I'll show you in a moment. And what I like to do is, when I think I've got it about right, is tighten the smaller ones up first. That's not going to be right. So this is the tip of the clamp up the front, pinching first. Not very tight, just very loose, enough to hold the knife, stop it dropping on the floor, and the same with the front. And then we'll flip to the larger Allen key and then adjust the back so it pinches down on the blade. This is the last one, which is making it as tight. If you like, you can get your tape, throw it here. We've got about 5.5. Check it again on the other side. We're also at 5.5 to the cutting edge of the blade, so that's good. Just finish tighten this other one up. Right, so our knife is now mounted and will not move. If there's any movement that you see, that's probably my rickety table. Up or down is not moving. Any other way, it's pretty good. Side to side is the only movement you're going to have, but it's got a very strong lock and you're not really going to knock it. I like to have my clamp towards the edge of the table, which then allows the handle to spin freely without catching on the table. So this customer would like a 15-degree angle on this knife. How do you find a 15-degree angle? Well, you first need to put the stone that you're going to start with into your clamp. As simple as that. Rest it on the blade so that we know that the thickness of this stone is going to be consistent. Now, you can look at your gauge here, but this gauge might not be perfect. So the way you can set that up is if with one of these, which is a digital angle cube. Okay, so the KO2 tsprof sharpener does come equipped ready for using this angle cube. There is a little platform on here which is flat to the main shaft that goes through, which is holding the blade. So this platform here is flat according to your machine. So it is, this cube is magnetic, so it will just stick on there. And you hold the power button and it turns off. Didn't mean to do that. Press the power button, it will zero the cube out, and then we will rest that on there, and there is another little plate here on the arm where you can stick that on. Now, looking at this gauge here, I'm getting 15.75, so we're pretty much there. That's good enough. But what you do want to check is as well, you flip it over, check it on the other side, and this is 15.20, so we're as good as we're going to get without a lot of messing around, and it's good enough for this anyway. So we'll turn that off. And here comes the Sharpie trick, which most people know about, but I'm going to demonstrate it here anyway. So I already know the angle that I want on this blade, so it doesn't really matter too much. If a customer gives you a knife and says that they want to keep the angle of the cut that they've already got on there the same, they don't want it changing, then what you need to do is come along the edge of the blade with the Sharpie marker just like that. And what that's doing is telling us the angle that the blade is already at. I will do it on both sides just to make sure that we're getting a consistent angle on both sides. So that comes all the way to the tip of the edge. I should say the apex of the edge, not the tip, because that's down here. Right, so we're going to set our stops, and the stops mean the blade, the stone won't run off the edge of the blade, and the stops are adjusted up here. So we need to check all the way along. In the middle here is the most important because it's where it's going to be closest to the apex of the blade. So we tighten the knob up there, push it all the way up, and check again the same. Now it's the other way for this way. Towards the edges is going to be the furthest that we need. So we're a bit too far up here. I'll just pull this back, check it again, and then tighten it off. Okay, now let's see if 15 is the angle that this blade is already cut at. Now, it's taken off most of the Sharpie on those two drags right near the apex, and it's left a little bit up the top in some places and a little bit down on the bottom in the other places. This just means that they've not done the best job of sharpening it themselves when they've tried, but that's why I'm here. So we'll run this back into a few times and see if we can get all of that Sharpie gone. And once we have got it all gone, I'm going to flip the blade over and take the Sharpie off the other side as well. When you completely remove the Sharpie from both sides, this should mean that you are meeting in the middle at the apex of the blade, and this, we can change stones at that point off of the coarse stone to a more finer stone, and from then on we'll refine the edge down to almost a polish, not a total polish, because personally I believe that a less smooth edge is going to be a better cutting edge, as it gives a bit of friction in the cutting, almost like a very microscopic serration. That's just my opinion. Some people like it to be very polished and smooth, but for food preparation I don't think this is the way to go, unless it's a Japanese knife for sushi or anything like that. So I'm just gonna crack on with this, probably speed it up a little bit for you guys. Okay, I can see from about here to here there's still Sharpie right on the edge. The rest of this blade until here is clear. From this point onwards there's still right on the very edge a very fine black line, so I'm just going to take it a little bit further before flipping the blade over. I've noticed as well that the blade has a little bit of flex, as it's not very thick, so I just need to be careful that I'm supporting it underneath as I go to stop the angle of the edge changing. Okay, that's done all the way across. It's time to flip the blade and work on the other side just the same, only this side on the clamps has these upstanding screws, so depending on your angle you can buy different clamps for fillet knives if you need the angle to be more around 10 degrees, 10, 15, all the way up to about 7. If you have that sort of angle you can't use these clamps because you will grind. When you see the angle like this, it will grind on the stone. So just keep your eye on that, make sure you're not using too much of a shallow angle on the blade for the type of clamps that you're using. Okay, it's quite important also to realize when you're doing a long knife like this, you're pressing down quite hard on the very end here. It's an extension. When you press down here, it's pressing down, or even here, it's pressing down here on the very ends of that. If you press down too much, it will go. So if you're right out here and you're pressing down hard and it slips, you're sending that flying round, and that's, well, I don't even need to tell you that it's dangerous. So just be careful, and if you do need to put some extra pressure on, always support the blade with your hand, not too near the edge, but if you've got the handle side, just hold it up. If it's around the other side, you can safely put your fingers underneath the blade just to stop it from being pushed down. Okay, now I'm at the point with this knife on the rough stone that I'm reaching the point where I'm making a wire edge on the blade, where if I'm grinding on one side, by the time I come to flip it over on the other side, you can visibly see the edge on the blade. You can also feel it with your thumb all the way along. So you just take that off. When you got that across the entire length, it's time to change. Okay, so now we're going to change the stone. Again, as simple as that. I'm not going to take you through all of the stones because it's just the same procedure over and over again until you come right up to, well, in this case I'm probably just going to take the 2000 grit on the stone, and that's good enough for me. Okay. Okay, that knife feels very sharp all the way along. If you have any marker left on the blade where you went above the grind, it can be removed with a simple quick spray of deodorant. And that's it, and it just wipes straight away. Make sure you clean the knife before you use it. Okay, so we'll pull this out by loosening the top screws with the Allen wrenches. Be careful at this point. If you think it's still grabbed and you loosen it off, you don't want it dropping down on your toes. From experience, you can damage the blade and your toe. So don't do that. Right, so I have loosened those off completely and it has still got a grip. So we'll change over and undo the other two. And that's it. Quarter of a turn and it's out. Okay, so one thing left to do, and that's strop the edge. I'm looking at this edge now and it's beautiful, clean and smooth like a satin finish. So I've just got here a wooden block with leather on one side and a bit of cork on the other side for different types of knives with some serrations as well. That helps a little bit with that. So we just give it a few runs back at 2. I prefer to use leather strapped onto a block because it gives a flat leather strop. If you see these other ones on a belt that you can get coming from the table and they're running it up and down like that, it's going to leave a curved edge on your blade rather than the straight angle that you've just spent a lot of time trying to get. Again, different knives and different people, you may want that. In my case, I don't want that. And that is it. Knife sharpened. So I've only got this small bit of paper here, but I'm sure we can make it work. Just take one piece from that. Quick test from the blade. Sharp as you like. So that's it. I'm going to move on to the next one and you guys can go and do whatever it is you want to do. Hope this was informational. Let me know if you want something else. Ta-da!